ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमः। ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन्निति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यस्य कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So welcome back to our Tuesday and Thursday series on the Vaishnav Ninda. We are in the part 2, which I had coined as a definitive analysis from the practical application and a Shastric perspective. So we had 2 sessions in this series, and I will just briefly summarize and continue the discussion for today. In this part 2 series, we are trying to understand practically how criticism is born of envy, a definitive analysis. We are discussing this in this topic, many subtopics we are discussing. The second is qualities of one who is free from envy. We have not yet started discussing this. We will take up. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's deliverance of criticizers and his instructions from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. So in the first class, we had seen these terms, dislike, jealousy, and envious, and what is the difference between them. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's remarkable statement not to criticize devotees, and his whole story from the Dhaka pastime. In the last class, I mentioned that why do we criticize? The reason we criticize is because we are not able to control the mind and senses. and we have not attained the mercy of the Lord. So when we don't control the mind and senses and ultimately attain the mercy of the Lord, then the mind takes mundane pleasure through the intelligence, with the help of the intelligence, in finding faults. And there is some rasa in it. It requires intelligence also to find faults. So that's how we settle on it. So as sadhakas, I was explaining how we have initial shraddha, appreciation for devotees, appreciation for deities, appreciation for dham. And with this appreciation, the shraddha grows with bhajan kriya, sadhu sang. But over a period of time, with our bhajan kriya, if we are not able to advance and cross the stage of anartha vritti and come to the stage of nishtha, when one is self-realized, one who has controlled the mind and senses, who's experiencing the mercy of the Lord, if he doesn't come to the stage, then such a sadhaka who is not yet controlled his mind and senses sometimes takes pleasure in criticizing, which is the business of the material intelligence. So that's why I termed this series, although this series from the Bhagavad Gita perspective is, from the flow perspective, is speaking something else, but I'm using the same verses from a Shastric perspective to analyze how to criticize the business of the mundane mind. So we saw these two verses, Dhyaito Vishayan Pumsan Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kamat Krodha Vijayate. We saw Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary and Srila Prabhupada's commentary. And the next verse was Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha Sammohat Spriti Vibrama Spriti Brahmshat Buddhi Nasho Buddhi Nashat Pranashyati. Here also we saw Baldev Vidyabhushan's commentary and Srila Prabhupada's commentary on that. And we saw what are the feelings. What are the feelings when these stages we go through? There's contemplation. Let me consider. Oh, I like it. I want it. Who can stop me? So like that, we discussed this. And then we discussed what is the meaning of Smriti. Smriti and relation between Smriti and Buddhi. Smriti is memory, memory of the words of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. There is material Buddhi and there is spiritual Buddhi. So the point here in the discussion was, ultimately, if we don't spiritualize the intelligence, if we don't spiritualize the intelligence, then the material intelligence in contact with the mind through which we perceive this world through the sense organ, the senses, will take pleasure in criticizing and finding faults and taking mundane pleasure. So that is why it is pertinent for sadhakas to spiritualize their buddhi. And how do we spiritualize the buddhi? The material buddhi, which is under the control of the mind and the senses, that is the material intelligence. When we come to Krishna consciousness, now the preaching happens to the intelligence, buddhi. And we hear the words of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. And hearing the words of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, we act according to Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. Anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varjan. What is favorable by my Krishna consciousness, I perform it. What is unfavorable, I reject it. So we have to shift our paradigm to work on this transcendental platform, Anukulasya sankalpa and pratikulasya varjanam. Otherwise, we will be caught up in the mundane platform on raga and dvesh. So today I will be discussing those next verses in the series. After 2.62 and 63 is 2.64, that is raga dvesh. So last time I forgot to explain this chart. This is the figurative analysis of the 6 enemies. As one of devotees had put up question, lust leads to anger. It is mentioned, kamat krodha vijayate. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. So there is illusion. Sammohat smriti vibrama, smriti vibrama, buddhi nasho. So although this analysis of the Bhagavad Gita is from a different perspective. Buddhi Nash is there. So here in this analysis, what I would like to point out is when, how do we know that there is lust? When anger manifests. How do you know that there is greed? We know that there is greed when we act in such illusion that we cheat our own family members, our own relatives, in order to fulfill our greed. That is how powerful. What is greed? Greed is concentrated form of lust. That's it. And then how do we detect envy? When there is pride. So how do we understand there is lust? When there is anger. How do you understand that there is greed? There is illusion. How do you understand when there is envy? There is pride. So what is again envy? Envy is lust, which is more deeper and concentrated. So that is how, this is another way of the analysis of the 6 enemies. And criticism is ultimately born of envy. That is what is our discussion. And how envy is so deep-rooted, you can see here the degrees, which is, figuratively here put in the graph. So this is one point which I did not present in the slide in the last class, which came up in the question answers. So I'm just covering that. So next theme now is criticism, the critical side. So we have the subtle body. The subtle body is made of mind, intelligence, and false ego. And within the subtle body is the mind and the intelligence. So there is our creative side, which is part of our mind. And the mind also is, to do with our emotions. The emotions are expressed through the mind. And then there is the intelligence, which is the critical side. Intelligence basically deals with analysis, rationalization. So we have these 2 sides within us, the critical side and the creative side. And Srila Prabhupada in his Ishopanishads explains synthesis and analysis. He uses these terms, synthesis and analysis. Synthesis means to see as one. Just like a flower. A flower is very beautiful. And seeing it synthetically means what? Just like an artist. Artists usually use their creative abilities in painting, and making drawings and all. So there is more of creative intelligence used. It is also intelligence in one sense, but it is more creative. So they see the flower as one unit and appreciate the beauty of the flower, the colors of the flower. So artistry, music, as all this has to do with our creative side, which is basically emotions, basically dealing with the mind. Whereas a botanist, when he sees the flower, his way of seeing is not synthetic, it is analytical. He will see the flower, he'll try to break the flower into different components. Oh, here is the central stamina, what is it called? Stamen or something, I don't recollect. And then there are the petals, and then there is the pollen. So like that, he would like to break the flower and analyze the flower because he's a botanist. So he will see from an analytical perspective, that is using his intelligence. Whereas an artist will see the same flower, he would not like to break it because he appreciates the whole beauty of the flower. So he will appreciate the beauty, the color of the flower. So he works from a creative side. So we have, as devotees, both the creative side and the critical side. And we have to balance. There has to be a balance between the two. We have to be always in the middle. We should not too much go into the critical side. Everything we see from the analytical perspective, then we start not appreciating the simplicity or the devotion which is there in any object, like Somebody shows a painting and we start analyzing and breaking it, they might not appreciate it much, but we appreciate the painting, how it is done, and we genuinely appreciate it. Then it's like using our creative side. So this critical side and creative side is very, very important for us as devotees to understand. And within the mind has these two extremes, raga and dvesh. Raga is attachment, dvesh is aversion. So having understood this, when there is raga, attachment, then the intelligence works in a way by which how to get that object of attachment. This is how the intelligence will start functioning under the dictation of the mind. When there is dvesha, then that same intelligence will engage in criticism. So that is the point of discussion, which will engage in criticism, that same intelligence. And that intelligence is the material intelligence. So intelligence, if it is not fully purified and it has not obtained the mercy of the Lord, that intelligence will become critical. So this is what is important for us to understand about these inner world of our functioning, the critical side and the creative side. So now let us go to this verse where the Gita explains how one who is free from raga and dvesh, he attains the mercy of the Lord. Now we have discussed text 2.62 and 63. Now we are discussing 2.64. And in 6.4, this is part of the symptoms of a Sthita Pragya. Vrajeta kim. Vrajeta means how does he walk? So how does he walk means, how does a Sthita Pragya walk means when a Sthita Pragya is out in this world, the senses can go towards the sense objects, or the sense objects can come to the senses. So how does, when such a situation is there, what are his symptoms? So that is the point. Now, somebody has raised their hand. Is there any question? Yes, Mataji? Yes, Mataji? You have a question?
Sorry, Prabhuji, it was by mistake. Sorry.
Okay. It is recommended that you can sit in one place and hear attentively so that we can focus on the discussion. Okay. So I was explaining how when a Sthita Pragya is out in this world, when the senses are charan, they go out in this world, the senses can get attracted to sense objects, or the sense objects might come to the senses. But how is his consciousness? And 2.71 graphically describes how just like the rivers enter into the ocean, but the ocean remains calm and still. Similarly, the sense objects might enter into the sense of such a Sthita Pragya, but na kama kami. He doesn't, go for the sense objects because he is full in Krishna consciousness. So that is graphically described in 2.71. In 2.71, the discussion ends. And what is the situation of such a self-realized soul? He will attain Brahma Nirvana, that is discussed in 2.72. But the discussion of how Vrajeta Kim happens is discussed in 2.64. It begins from 2.64. So let us discuss 2.64. Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu Vishayan Indriyascharan Atma Vasher Videyatma Prasadam Adhigachati. One whose mind is submissive, Vidhi Atma, who engages in the sense objects with the senses. Vishayan Indriyash Charan. Vishayan refers to the sense objects. Indriya Charan, the senses do charan in sense objects. The indriyas do charan in the sense objects. Like those who go, especially those who are cowherd men, they go for, taking the cows for grazing in the fields. And that is called as Gocharan. Gocharan. And Krishna performs this famous pastime, what is called as the Gocharan Leela. So the goes, that is the cows, where do they charan? They charan in the grass. For them, that is the sense object. Similarly, the Indriya do charan indra vishayan, in the sense objects. So one who is vidhi atma, one whose mind is submissive, he engages the senses in the sense objects, but what? Freed from attachment and repulsion. Raga dvesha vimukte. He is free from raga dvesha vimukte. Under the control of the mind, atma vashe. His mind doesn't become attached. Oh, this I like it, that's why I'll have it more. This I don't like it, so I'll not have it. No, he's free from attachment and repulsion. Attains peace. Prasadam adhigacchati. Here prasad means mercy. Prasad doesn't mean the Mahaprasad, which we have a general sense of understanding. But here prasad means he attains the mercy of the Lord. So this is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's translation. Baldev Vidyabhushan has little translated differently. Let us read that. One whose mind is offered to me. Here it is submissive. Krishna is saying one who has offered his mind to me. Savai mana Krishna padaravindo. Even though he enjoys the sense objects, Vishayan Charan, with the senses, freed from attachment and repulsion, Raga Dvesha Vimuktestu. He is very, very neutral. He is having Kheer Prasad, he is having Karela Prasad, but he is not, under the control of Raga and Dvesh. Under the control of mind, Atma Vasher attains a pure mind, Prasadam Adhigacchati. So this is how Baldev Vidyabhushan has slightly translated in a different way. So let us now see the commentary, very important for us to understand Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. This verse answers the question, how does the Sthita Prajna go? Prajet Krim. The Lord explains that it is not a fault to accept the object of the senses if it is done with controlled senses, with the absence of attachment of the objects in the mind. So there is no fault in accepting the object of the senses, provided you have controlled the senses and you are free from attachment to the objects in the mind. We should not have these attachments. According to Amar Kosha, Vidheya means submissive, situated in words, compliant, controlled, well-behaved, polite, equal. So these are the different meanings, and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his translation has used the word submissive. So every Sanskrit word has different meanings, and in a particular context, one meaning is particularly relevant. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has used the word submissive. One whose mind, Atma, is submissive to instructions, Vidhe Atma. Vidhe means Vidhi, Vidhi and Nishet, the rules. Who contacts objects with senses controlled by the mind, senses devoid of attachment and repulsion, attains peace, prasadam. He attains mercy of the Lord. Contacting the sense objects is not a fault. Rather, it is the good quality for one who does with control. In other words, for a Sthita Prajna, accepting the renunciation of enjoyment of objects, either by withdrawal of senses, asana, or by engaging senses, is beneficial. So, a Sthita Prajna, a controlled person who has controlled his mind and his senses, sometimes he might withdraw his senses and not engage in the sense objects based on the paradigm of Anukulasya Sankalpa, Pratikulasya Varjana. Sometimes he might engage the senses in the sense objects. Again, on the paradigm or the platform of Anukulasya Sankalpa, Pratikulasya Varjana. So both these things he does based on this sutra, Anukulasya Sankalpa and Pratikulasya. What is favorable for Krishna consciousness? If it is pleasing to Krishna, yes, I will do it. If it is not, and he doesn't act on the platform of raga and dvesh, which is the mental platform. Ehu balo ehe manda sakala manodharma. This is good, this is bad. This is all based on manodharma, as in the Chaitanya Charitamrita Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says. Baldev Vidyabhushan. If one conquers the mind, even if the senses are not subdued, there is no fault. So if one has conquered the mind, then senses are automatically actually controlled in one sense. In 8 verses, the Lord answers the last question: how does the Sthita Pragya engage in action of the senses in the sense objects? It has just been said that even if one has conquered the external senses, if he does not offer his mind to me, his spiritual endeavor is a failure. So this is being referred to 6.23, 2.62 and 6.3. That person who has a controlled mind, a mind offered to me, Vidheyatma, through which he finally achieves destruction of the impurities of the mind. That means the mind is completely offered to Krishna, and the mind is now free from all impressions, and the mind has no attachment to likes and no aversion to dislikes. Because all the destruction of the impurities of mind, such as attachment to pleasure, though enjoying charan, the forbidden sense objects such as sound, by the senses such as the ear, but which are devoid of attraction and repulsion, and which are dependent on the mind, Atma Vasher, which is offered to me, that person finally attains a pure mind, prasadam. Prasadam means purity as well as mercy, free from the appearance of contamination such as attraction to sense objects. This is a long explanation. Just to summarize, when the mind is pure, it also means the intelligence is pure. And it is with the intelligence, the mind is controlled, thereby the senses are controlled. And such a mind, even if it is engaged in sense objects, that mind is free from any impressions in the heart, chitta, previous impressions. All the impressions are wiped away because of the mind being offered to Krishna, and Krishna is there in the heart. Matchitta matagata prana, as Krishna says in 10.9. So that mind, there is no impressions of sense enjoyments, which are called as vasanas in the heart. And that is why there is no attraction or repulsion. So such a self-realized soul has, attained the mercy of the Lord. Prasadam adi gacchati. Srila Prabhupada says, it is already explained that one may externally control the senses by some artificial process, but unless the senses are engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, there is every chance of a fall. So this Prabhupada is explaining of the Jnana and the Ashtanga path, and this is the Bhakti path. So there is a chance of fall. That fall down sutra we saw 2.62 and 6.3. Although a person in full Krishna consciousness may apparently be on the sensual plane, because of his being Krishna conscious, he has no attachment to sensual activities. So devotees also are eating, but they are eating Krishna Prasad, thinking this is the mercy of the Lord. Any materialistic person might say, oh, devotees also eat food, we are also eating food, but they are eating Prasad. So it might look as a sensual activity, but because he is Krishna consciousness, he is free from this attachment and aversion. The Krishna conscious person is concerned only with the satisfaction of Krishna and nothing else. So this is the platform Prabhupada is speaking of, Anukulasya Sankalpa, Pratikulasya Varjanam, or the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu definition of pure devotion. Therefore, he is transcendental to all attachment and detachment. If Krishna wants, the devotee can do anything which is ordinary, undesirable. And if Krishna does not want, he shall not do what that which he would have ordinarily done for his own satisfaction. So therefore, to act or not to act is within his control because he acts only under the direction of Krishna. So this is for a Mahabhagavat Uttamadhikari, but for us, we'll have to follow the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, and especially we'll have to follow anukulasya sankalpa, pratikulasya varjanam. We'll have to do that. And it is always best to, especially when certain important actions which we want to do, and we have doubts, we have to ask our spiritual authorities, our counselors, or Shiksha Gurus, Diksha Gurus, and we have to act under their direction. This consciousness is the causeless mercy of the Lord, which the devotee can achieve in spite of being attached to sensual platform. That is prasadam adhikachati. So here my point was that as long as we have not controlled the mind and senses, and the mind is not pure, that means the intelligence is also pure in that sense. And with that pure intelligence, we have controlled the mind and senses. Till then, we have not achieved the mercy of the Lord in one sense. And as sadhakas, if we don't endeavor to practice strenuously sadhana bhakti and attain sense control and mind control, which is only possible by process of bhakti, especially chanting of the holy names, Nama Sankirtan, and attain this stage of Sthita Pragya and attain the mercy of the Lord, Prasadam Adhigacchati, then the intelligence is impure, the mind is under the control of Raga and Dvesh, and the senses are also not controlled. And with that impure intelligence, the mind has to take pleasure, either in spiritual rasa or mundane rasa. So a sadhaka who has not attained self-mastery will ultimately glide down in taking mundane pleasure in the form of criticism. So that's how I'm connecting this verse. He will like devotees who glorify him, who have good opinion about him, but some devotees who criticize him or find faults with him, he will be averse to him. So this is again acting on the platform of Raga and Dvesh. And the more he becomes averse to him, the more his material disease increases. And his purification will not happen. So the purification of the intelligence happens only by controlling the mind and senses as well as the intelligence also. And that time, that intelligence is taking pleasure in glorifying Krishna, in Nam Sankirtan, in Nam Ras. And that kind of a soul who has achieved this kind of mercy is completely having distaste for criticism. Otherwise, even sadhakas who don't come to this level, there is tendency to criticize by the impure intelligence. So that was my point. So now how to purify the buddhi, internalizing the buddhi. So this is 2 slides and then I will take up question answers. So it is pertinent that we have to internalize the buddhi. So we work at 2 levels. The first level is borrowed buddhi. Borrowed buddhi means what? Buddhi is based on our faith in Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So sadhakas, while practicing sadhana bhakti, we hear the instruction from the senior devotees, spiritual masters, and hearing those instructions, applying those instructions, we practice Krishna consciousness. This is called as borrowed buddhi. Prabhupada gives the example of how an apprenticeship, who is like joined a carpenter company where they are doing carpentry work. He doesn't use his intelligence, on how to cut the wood or how to, design a chair. He doesn't have experience. So he will go to an experienced person And he will tell, okay, first cut this wood in the form of a rectangle by this size and this size. Then next cut it and then shape it like this. And then after a few years like this training, then he will tell him, okay, now you can make your own drawings. So initially, one who is in the training period, he borrows the intelligence from one who is an experienced person. Similarly, sadhakas have borrowed buddhi based on the faith in Guru, Shatsu and Shastra by hearing. We should rely on borrowed buddhi initially. Slowly, as the tattvas, the spiritual truths slowly become realized, our buddhi becomes internalized. These same words which we accept, it is based on our analysis, experience, and realization. So now this buddhi has become more internalized and purified, where we can analyze Shastra and we have realizations of Shastra and we speak with realizations. So in this context, Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Bhaktya Loka is a very interesting book. In Bhaktya Loka, 6 articles Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote on the 6 unfavorable items of devotion which is mentioned in Updeshamrit, that is Atyahara, Prayasa, Prajalpa. And 6 items which are favorable, beginning with Utsaha, Nishchay, Dhairya, he wrote 6 articles. And all that had come in his journal in the form of The Harmonist, which was published. Later on, all these articles are published now in the form of a Bhaktya Loka book, which is a very important book for devotees after they study Updeshamrit for few times. Definitely, this book has to be studied for deeper understanding of these 2 verses of Updeshamrit. So there, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions in specially Laulya. Laulya, he explains greed. Laulya means greed, and he also says restlessness. And he says restlessness is of 2 types. Restlessness of the mind and restlessness of the intelligence. And restlessness of the mind has 2 divisions because of attachment and aversion. Just like I like gulab jamun. Moment I see gulab jamun, because of greed, my mind becomes restless to have the gulab jamun. I don't like some devotee because I had some bad experience with him. So the moment I see him, I become a little restless. So the mind has this 2 divisions, restlessness because of attachment, restlessness because of aversion. As I was explaining in that previous slide, if you had seen the creative side and the intelligent side, the analytic, critical side. So I had made subdivisions. Similarly, Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions this. And then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, even the intelligence has these 2 divisions, material intelligence and spiritual intelligence. And then he defines what is material intelligence. So kindly hear very interestingly what material intelligence is. Material intelligence means that which is under the dictation of the mind and the senses. That is raga and dvesh. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions spiritual intelligence means that which is under the dictation of the soul. So the soul dictates the intelligence to go to the temple. The intelligence dictates to the mind because the intelligence controls the mind, and the mind thereby controls the senses. So the senses go to the temple. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that spiritual intelligence means it is under the dictation of the soul directly. That means he's a self-realized soul. Whereas material intelligence is under the dictation of the mind and the senses based on likes and dislikes, raga and dvesh. So here is the point that as long as the buddhi is not fully spiritualized, till then the mundane intelligence has this ability to perceive through the mind faults and engage in criticism. So that was my point of whole discussion of this verse and these some of the important points and concepts about it. Now, how do we internalize buddhi? Now, in the Upanishads, the Shvetashwar Upanishads and in the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, it is mentioned that education or learning goes through 3 stages. Sometimes it is mentioned as 4 stages also, our education. So he says there are 3 stages: Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana means we hear from the ears. We just hear. And Manana means to contemplate what we have heard. Have I understood what was explained in the class? To understand, it is called as bodh also. Bodh means, comes from the word buddhi. Bodh means, oh, aisa hai kya? When we say, na, oh, abhi aapka tubelight jal gaya kya? We say, na, sometimes in Hindi. That means to understand what is being heard. That is called as manana, or it is sometimes called as bodh. That is manana, where there is intellectual insight about the subject. You have internalized the subject by contemplation, manana. And then when it is understood, we have to live by it, apply those and live by what is being given in the instructions in the scriptures. And that is called as Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana, in the Upanishadic language or in the Yoga Sutras, it is mentioned as Acharan. Acharan means one lives by the teachings of the scriptures and then he does prachar. And that prachar, because he is living by it, it is very effective. So Nididhyasana is when the subject is not only understood in the head, but in the heart, it is fully internalized. It is fully internalized. And then you always live by that instructions, what you have heard. I will give you one example to understand these 3 levels of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, or what is in other Upanishad language, other, I think, Shvetashwar Upanishads, or in the Yoga Sutras, it is mentioned, Aditi, Bodha, Achara, Prachara. Aditi means to hear. Bodha means intellectual insight, which is similar to Manana. Acharan is Nididhyasana. And Prachar means to preach. So there is a pastime in the life of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. When he was just a 5-year-old kid, he just, the mangoes had come, he just immediately picked up the mango and ate the mango. Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually reprimanded his child in order to teach him, which is the duty of the Acharya and the father also. How could you eat without offering to the deities? So when Bhaktivinoda Thakur's words were heard by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he immediately, contemplated in his mind, and he immediately took it to his heart, these instructions. And throughout his life, he never ate mangoes. Just as a 5-year-old child, those instructions, so much he deeply took to his heart that he never throughout his life ate mangoes. Mangoes is the king of all the fruits. And many of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur disciples and sannyasis used to offer him mangoes. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur very humbly used to say, "Oh, I am a pradi." So he so much took those instructions to his heart and he lived by the words what he had heard from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So this is an example of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Now, initially in our spiritual life, one of the reasons we don't advance is we don't do sufficient hearing. This is one of the important aspects. Now, because of especially internet and especially everything available on the mobile and the laptop, the ability to concentrate comes down, in fact, because the devices are emanating radiation and there is pictures which are coming, which are continuously being processed by our mind and intelligence. So in a natural setting, in a nature setting where the atmosphere is sattvic, the mind can absorb directly the sound vibration which is heard. So we need to be Bahushuta, Dirghashuta. Bahushuta means we should hear the subject matter of Shastra for many, many times. And Dirghashuta means we should hear for longer and longer and longer periods. 1 hour class, 2 hour class, 3 hour classes. We should have that capacity to hear. So after hearing for many years, and not only we should hear, after we have heard, we should go back and reflect or make some points. This is what is called as manana. So many devotees don't do this manana. And that is why the purification of the intelligence doesn't happen. And when we start doing such manana, slowly from the head, the thing will travel to our heart. It will slowly start sinking in our heart, and these instructions we'll start applying it in our life and living by it. That is internalizing the scripture. And this head to heart, the head to the heart is not a long distance, maybe half of my hand. This distance is very short, but actually in our spiritual life, the travel from the head to heart is many, many years. 20 years, 30 years, or 40 years, like that. So in the Bhagavad Gita 10.8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam bhuda bhava samanvita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo. We have to hear this and analyze how Krishna is the source of all things. Matta sarvam pravartate. Iti matva bhajante mam. Understanding this, he does his bhajan. How? Bhuda. Bhuda means head. And bhava. Bhava is heart, emotions. So the head to the heart journey is a long journey, although the distance is very less physically, but it is a long journey. So at first level, we should be Dirghashuta and Bahushuta. And every time we hear, we should take out some time to write down or reflect or discuss what we have heard, and slowly from the head, we have to travel to the heart and thereby purify the buddhi so that buddhi doesn't take mundane pleasure in criticism. So this was some Shastric analysis of this verse, what we have discussed today. So I will just pause here for any questions. Any questions anyone has can raise their hands. There are some new devotees who have joined. Yes, Mataji. Yeah, I have unmuted you.
Hare Krishna, Guruji, Dandavat Pranam. Guruji, my question was, as a devotee, we if I like something, then definitely I'm not, as a devotee, I don't go and buy. I prepare it that thing at home with thing in my mind that I'm preparing it for Lord, and then I'm offering it and I'm accepting it as prasadam. But at the bottom line is the thing, that food, whatever prasadam I have prepared, it is of my choice. It is of my liking. So is it comes under like raga? Though it is like spiritualized, I have offered it, but bottom line is it is of my liking.
Yes. So this is true. That's why I'm showing this verse. 9.26 says, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachita tadam bhakta uparatam ashnami prayatatma. This 9.26 is speaking about pure devotion. What Krishna likes. And if what Krishna likes, you offer it to him with devotion, Krishna says, I accept it. This verse is speaking about what Krishna likes. The next verse, if you see, is Yad karoshi, yad ashnasi, yad juvoshi, dadasi yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurusva madarpanam. Yad karoshi means whatever you do. Yad ashnasi, whatever you eat. Now, I like to eat this. Because I like to eat this, I do what? I prepare it and I then offer it to Krishna. Whatever you like, whatever you want to do it, but tat kurusu madarpanam. Do it as an offering to me. So the acharyas explain this is one level down pure devotional service. It is more of a mixed devotion. It is not at the level of pure devotion. So as sadhakas in the beginning stages, yes, we cannot completely become free from our likes and dislikes because we are conditioned and we are coming from a different culture. Somebody is in South India, he has liking for dosa, idli, and it is difficult for someone to adjust to other things. But at the initial stages, it is okay. But as one advances, especially to higher levels, especially after the stage of Nishtha, his consciousness will be what Krishna likes. I would like to prepare that for Krishna and offer it and take it in the form of prasad. And that time, because he has controlled his mind and senses, he's free from raga and dvesh, and he doesn't get affected whether this is sweet item, oh, I like it, so I'll eat more, or this is Karela, I don't like it, I'll eat less. But he will be neutral, and whatever is offered, he'll just accept it as Krishna's mercy without any attachment or aversion. So this is a very lofty level of consciousness, but devotees should understand the difference between these two levels of devotion. This is a little bit mixed devotion, and I'll not go into the technicalities of it right now. But definitely we should understand that there is difference in that kind of devotion. And that's why Updeshamrit very clearly, even in the first verse, mentions that one should not offer to the deities prasadam, prepare prasadam with the intention that he can have palatable dishes. That is also not advised. Updeshamrit Prabhupada in his purport is saying. So again, even Updeshamrit instructions, first verse itself are very lofty instructions. And to come to that platform is not so easy in the beginning stages. But in the beginning stages, it is okay. And slowly, as we advance in Krishna consciousness, we have to come to this highest understanding. We should not act under the platform of raga and dvesh, but we should act on the platform of anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. That is important. Once one of the disciples who had gone to visit Radha Damodar temple, the pujari, understanding that his spiritual master is very close to me also, so he immediately took out the prasad which was offered to Radha Damodar. They were besan laddus, and he gave it to the disciple. Please give it to your Guru Maharaj. This is Radha Damodar prasad. So this disciple kept these besan laddus full box in the room of the spiritual master, and he told his servant. So when the servant informed the spiritual master, when he came and he saw these besan laddus, he immediately went and started having it. From an external perspective, you see, what is this? But the spiritual master was having in a consciousness, oh, this is directly sent by Radha Damodar. And actually the servant was mentioning that the spiritual master, the Guru Maharaj, had never liked besan items. Besan is not good for his health. But he just, galloped all the laddus because he was experiencing the mercy coming from Radha Damodar. So he was not acting on the platform of raga and dvesh, but anukulyasya sankalpa and pratikulyasya varjanam. So this is a very transcendental platform. trying to work on the platform of Anukulasa Sankalpa and Pratikulasa Vajanam. It is difficult, but at least we should know and try to work on it. That is my point. I hope it is clear, Mataji.
Yes, Guruji, but work on it means like how it will come, like what are the steps or how we can proceed it towards that to be like not becoming in the entanglement of raga and dvesha. Will it come by chanting or like how?
It comes by chanting, taste in chanting. It also comes by understanding, whether this I like and I don't like, I'm working on Raga and Dvesh platform, or whether I'm working on Anukulasa Samkalpa, Pratikulasa Vajanam. Just analyze and see on what platform you are working. By that, you'll understand slowly. And then slowly, step by step, try to come from this plane, shift from the material plane to the spiritual plane. It's a paradigm shift, in fact. It's not so easy, but slowly we have to do. Is it okay,
Yes.
Mataji?
Yes, Ruchi, thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions anyone has? Maya Narsimha Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, I have two questions, but I will ask one, Prabhu.
Okay, please.
Prabhuji, in this, you quoted the 64th verse, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaischu, Prasadam Adhigachyate. In that verse, what you have mentioned as Prasadam, as the mercy of the Lord, that similar verse, that Prasadam has been made as synonym to Param Društva Nivartate in 2.59. So where it is said, Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehina Rasavarjam Rasopyasya Param Društva Nivartate. So both places he's getting the mercy of the Lord. But here in 59, he is by restraining his senses, he's getting the mercy. And whereas in 64, though he is in contact with the senses, still he is getting the mercy of the Lord. So what is the difference between these two, Prabhu?
Actually, then we'll have to study in depth the Bhagavad Gita and scrutinizingly analyze the verses, the flow of the Bhagavad Gita. And I think this is not the forum for that to do. But just to bring out the difference, that verse spoke about how by withdrawal of the senses, the mind focuses inwards to the inner vision of seeing the Paramatma. That is the verse which is speaking. So that the mind doesn't go external to the senses and the sense objects. Prabhupada takes that explanation to the higher level of Bhakti platform of actually having the vision of the beauty of the Lord. Who has tasted the beauty of the Lord, he has no taste for anything in this material world. So that is the discussion there. But here in this 2.64, this is speaking about especially the devotee who has controlled his mind and senses and has offered his mind to Krishna in that sense. So in that sense, sense control and mind control, Shama and Dama, is being discussed, especially after he has offered his mind to Krishna, because that is the flow. 2.61 Tani Sarvani is mentioned. And if one doesn't offer his mind to Krishna, then what is the effect? 2.62 and 63 is discussed. 64, if you see within the flow, is who will attain the mercy of the Lord, is one who has completely regulated the mind by following the sadhana bhakti. In fact, if you say Vidyatma means following the rules and regulations of sadhana bhakti, he attains the mercy of the Lord. And like that, you have to see it.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhuji. One more question, Prabhuji. Prabhu, you talked about Shravanam as a 4 stages, but Prabhuji, what about Kirtanam? Because that is also been considered as a major limb for realizations to come. So how we need to take that into consideration, Prabhu?
Now, when we analyze in Shastra, from one angle, now we are analyzing from the basic components of education. And these are the components of education: Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasam. Or what I said, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, that is Aditi, Bodha, Achara, Prachar. This is one way of analyzing of how education is internalized. Now, what you are mentioning is from a different angle, that is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Archanam, Mandhyam, Dasam.
No, Prabhuji. No, Prabhuji. I'm sorry, Prabhu. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what we heard. We also need to repeat it either to others or to our own selves. I'm talking about that part, Prabhu.
Then in that case, Prabhupada explains Shravanam and Kirtanam, but there Prabhupada is using Kirtanam in a different sense. Kirtanam means one has to understand what he has heard. Only when you have understood, then you can explain it to others. So that, Prabhupada explains that, then that can refer to the parallel what we discussed as Manana.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you.
Any other questions anyone else has? We would like to hear from others also. Any other questions? Okay, there are no questions. Then there is one more theme to be discussed, which is only 4-5 slides, which we can finish in 10 minutes. We have another 15 minutes. So I will take up that. So after discussing internalizing the buddhi, I come to this verse 2.65. Prasade sarva dukkhanam hanirasya upajayate prasanna chetaso hi ashu buddhi paravatishtate. From this peace, prasade, peace. Now this is not external peace of the mind, where you feel shant coming to a temple. This peace is internal peace, where the mind is free from material desires, the mind is pure, and the soul is in relationship with Krishna. That it is internal shanti in one sense. From this peace arises upajayate, destruction of all distress. Asya sarva dukkhanam hani. Hani means destruction. Sarva dukkhanam. Quickly, ashu, the intelligence of the peaceful minded person, prasanna cheta buddhi, becomes completely fixed. Paryavatishtate. So the intelligence is completely fixed. So this was my point of the discussion, that the intelligence is fixed and it is completely under the dictation of the soul. The soul directs the intelligence, the pure intelligence directs the pure mind, and the mind directs the senses. Whereas the material intelligence is not under the dictation of the soul, but it is under the dictation of the mind and thereby of the senses. But the buddhi now is completely fixed and he has attained the mercy of the Lord. All destruction, all distress is completely destroyed. Vishwanath Chakra Thakur, the intelligence is fixed in its desired goal completely. Pari avatishtate, all distress is destroyed. But because of no desire for enjoying the objects, the person accepting necessary objects of the senses for his survival has tranquility of the mind. He has peaceful consciousness, prasanna chetasa, just because of bhakti. The first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam states that without bhakti, one cannot have peaceful mind. So here Bhanu Maharaj has made a note. This is probably Bhagavatam 1-20. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata bhagavat tattva vijnana mukta sangasya jayate. So that is the verse. Vyasadeva, even though writing the Vedanta Sutras, did not have happiness of the mind, but he gained peace at heart through bhakti taught by Narad. So this is a peace of the heart and there is the peace of the mind. Peace of the mind is when you go to the temple, I'm feeling relaxed, and maybe you might go to sleep also, especially in some centers where there is just meditation on some light. And after you have the deep sleep, sorry, I'm not sharing the screen extremely. Please forgive me. Please forgive me. Okay. So he might, go in that meditation room, he might be seeing a light and he might go to sleep and he might, I'm feeling peaceful. So there is a peace of the heart and then there is peace of the mind. So here, Vyasadeva had not attained peace of mind, although he wrote Vedanta Sutra, but he attained peace of heart through bhakti. Peace of heart means the heart or the soul which is connected in relationship with Krishna. Just like the child who is in the mother's lap. Although mother might be running out, going out inside in the streets, in the, streets where she is buying vegetables, fruits, but the child is very peaceful in the lap of the mother because he is completely surrendered to the mother. So similarly, one who is in relationship with Krishna, he has got this peace of heart. That is the difference between peace of heart and peace of mind. Peace of mind is external Shanti. Peace of heart is internal Shanti, which is in our relationship with Krishna, where there is no trace of material desires in the mind. Baldev Vidyabhushan, what happens after he attains a pure mind? He puts this question because in his discussion, it was a pure mind. When the mind of the yogi is pure, there will arise destruction of all distress caused by the contact with matter. So here, Baldev Vidyabhushan is explaining about a yogi, whereas Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining from the bhakti perspective. The intelligence of that person whose mind is peaceful, prasanna chetasa, which is directed towards his own Atma, then remains fixed. So here, Baldev Vidyabhushan is speaking about self-realization, when one is fixed in self-realization. So here is some important point for our discussion. Sarva dukkhanam hani means what? Destruction of cravings for material enjoyment. So there is no craving in the heart to enjoy. And Srila Jiva Goswami says, dukkam kama sukha apekshaya. What is dukkha? He defines desire. That I will get sukha, apeksha. I have an apeksha that if I do this, then I will get happiness. The very thing that this will make me happy, that is the source of dukkha, he says. Srila Jiva Goswami. Prabhupada in his 17.16 purport, he says, satisfaction of the mind can be obtained only by taking the mind away from the thoughts of sense enjoyment. The more we think about sense enjoyment, the more the mind becomes dissatisfied. Prasanna Cheta, realization of our Sachidanand nature. So that is when we are Evam Prasanna Manaso. So I will just go through quickly how in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Kleshagni, Klesha is because of, Papam, Bijam and Avidya. And how Bhakti also destroys Avidya is mentioned. And this destruction of Avidya happens at the stage of Bhava. Shunvatam Sakata Krishna indicates the stage of Shraddha to Anarth Nivritti. And Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu indicates the stage of Nishta. Tada Rajastamo Bhava indicates the stage of Ruchi and Asakti. Then such a person gains positive scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead. Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam and Evam Prasanna Manaso is mentioned, indicates the stage of Bhava. So at this stage of Bhava, what happens? Our avidya is destroyed and we realize our spiritual nature, Sachidanand nature. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavat bhakti yogata bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. So in that sense, the soul's pure joyful nature manifests. And we are completely free from the subtle contamination of the intelligence and the mind and the senses also. We are situated in our Swarupa. So that is the point here I had to make. At this stage, the knot of ignorance within the heart is cut and one sees the Supreme Lord. Vidhyante hridaya granthis, chindante sarvasamshaya, shriyante chasya karmani, drishta eva atma ishvara. Drishta means he is able to see himself and the Lord. At the stage of Bhava, one realizes the Sarupa, one realizes also Krishna, and in what rasa he is related to Krishna. So here the point is Evam Prasanna Manaso. Why I had discussed is because we realize our Sachidanand nature. And although this destruction of avidya happens at the stage of bhava. Once we cross the stage of nishtha, our mind and senses are controlled, and we usually don't engage in criticism. It is only the impure intelligence which takes pleasure, mundane rasa, which is involved in criticism. So that was my point of discussion. So here we will stop. Any questions, any clarifications anyone has about this last verse we discussed? There is one more verse I wanted to discuss, which will take maybe 5 minutes more. Can I have discuss that and then take up the question answers? We might take 10 minutes more. If I have the permission, then I can take this one more verse so that we can finish this discussion of this theme today. Is it okay? Can we discuss? Okay, so now I have quoted another verse from the Bhagavad Gita. This is 5.7. Yoga yukta vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvanapi na lipyate. One engaged in karma yoga, yoga yukta, gaining controlled intelligence. Vishuddhatma, here it is, controlled intelligence. Mind and senses, vijitatma. Vijitatma means he has controlled his mind. Jitendriya. Jita means conquered, indriya means the senses. The object of love of all living beings. Sarva bhutatma, though working, kurvanapi, is not contaminated. So here, Baldev Vidyabhushan says, such a person aspiring for liberation is best among the people. The person engaged in Nishkama Karma Yoga, Yoga Yukta, consequently having uncontaminated intelligence, controlled mind, and controlled senses, senses devoid of attraction to sense objects such as sound, and consequently whose body, Atma, becomes an object of love, Atma Bhuta, for all jivas, Sarva Bhuta. Even we know bhakti, what is Kleshagni and Shubhada. Shubhada means one develops auspicious qualities and he becomes attractive to all devotees. He is not contaminated by work. Even performing actions in this manner, he is not contaminated by thinking of the self as a material thing because of his quest for individual Atma, because of his quest for individual Atma. Quickly, he will attain the Atma. Therefore, Karma Yoga is better. So here, Baldev Vidyabhushan is explaining the process of Nishkama Karma Yoga, where he has controlled his mind and senses and his intelligence is pure, and he becomes also dear to all living beings. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, the Jnani by performing karma is not contaminated. That is stated in this verse. The Jnanis engaged in karma yoga of three types. Those who have controlled their intelligence, Vishuddhatma. Those who have controlled their minds, Vijitatma. And those who have controlled their senses, Jitendriya. So here, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Jnanis are at three levels. Who have controlled their senses, who have controlled their mind, and who have controlled their intelligence. So three levels he gives this. The order of superiority is from last to first. Having controlled intelligence is the best. So purification in sadhana bhakti, first we purify the senses, then the mind gets purified, then the intelligence gets purified, like that. All jivas are attracted to such a grahastha. His body, Atma, becomes an object of love for all living beings. Sarva Bhuta, Bhutatma. Now, Srila Prabhupada's purport is very interesting, which I wanted to highlight in fact. One who is on the path of liberation by Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is directly not explaining a Jnani who practices Karma Yoga for liberation, but Prabhupada from the Bhakti perspective is explaining, is very dear to every living being and every living being is dear to him. This is due to his Krishna consciousness. Such a person cannot think of any living being as separate from Krishna, just as the leaves and branches of a tree are not separate from a tree. So he sees every living being as part and parcel of Krishna. He knows very well that by pouring water to the root of the tree, the water will be distributed to all the leaves and branches, or by supplying food to the stomach, the energy is automatically distributed throughout the body. Because one who works in Krishna consciousness is servant of all, he is very dear to everyone. And because everyone is satisfied by his work, he is pure in consciousness. So directly Prabhupada, how one who is Krishna conscious, he is a servant of all. His consciousness is pure. So because his consciousness is pure, he is Vishuddha Atma, Vijit Atma, and Jitendriya. Like that Prabhupada, explains. Because he is pure in consciousness, his mind is completely controlled. And because his mind is controlled, his senses are also controlled. Because his mind is always fixed on Krishna, there is no chance of him deviated from Krishna. Nor there is a chance that he will engage his senses in matters other than the service of the Lord. So even in bhakti, we should be careful that whether we are engaging our senses in other matters. When we come to do service for the Lord, we might engage in prajalpa. It is there. He does not like to hear anything except topics related to Krishna. He does not like to eat anything which is not offered to Krishna. He does not like to wish to go anywhere if Krishna is not involved. Therefore, his senses are controlled. A man of controlled senses cannot be offensive to anyone. So committing aparadh or criticizing is also an offense. So if we have no controlled senses, then we definitely commit offense. So that was my point of discussion here from Prabhupada's purport. Then Prabhupada says, one may ask, why then was Arjuna offensive in battle to others? Wasn't he in Krishna consciousness? Arjuna was only superficially offensive because, as he has already been explained in the second chapter, all the assembled persons on the battlefield would continue to live individually as the soul cannot be slain. So spiritually, no one was killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Only their dresses were changed by the order of Krishna, who was personally present. Therefore, Arjuna, while fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, was not really fighting at all. He was simply carrying out the orders of Krishna in full Krishna consciousness. Such a person is never entangled in the reactions of the work. So what happened in the battlefield of Kurukshetra? There was just a change of dress. That's it. It was not actually a battle. And this change of dress was ordained by Krishna, and Arjuna fulfilled it. So there was no reaction. So my point here is that if the senses are not controlled and the mind is not controlled, we will be offensive. That means we will find faults, and that is also an aparadh. And Arjuna, by killing all the people on the battlefield, he did not commit any aparadh nor any pap. So that is the point. That's why I discussed this. So the next class, we will see what is constructive criticism. This is a very important topic. And this theme we will see in the next class. So I will take any questions. You can raise your hand. There's one question which has come. How to implement Nididhyasam in our day-to-day life. First point is to do systematic Shravanam. Focused, calm, peaceful, sitting in one place doing Shravanam. Trying to make notes. And after we have done the Shravanam, it is to be done as what? Mananam. Mananam is contemplation or reflecting on what you have heard. This is also called as ruminating. Just like the cow eats the grass, it goes to the stomach, it takes it back from the stomach and keeps on chewing it. So you have to chew on what you have heard. That is Mananam. So the more we do Mananam, slowly it starts internalizing and it starts into deep experience and realization, which you live by it, and it is part of you. You can anytime spontaneously speak about it. That is the level of Nididhyasam. Whereas devotees, if they are told to give a class, they will make points and they'll try to keep that chart with them and try to explain. Whereas one who is experiencing Krishna consciousness through his realizations, he can speak spontaneously. So the first two steps have to be meticulously done. Then slowly, Nididhyasana will happen. There is one Mataji who has asked question. Prabhuji, do criticizing devotees have dangerous effects? But it is the same bad effect on us when it comes to getting angry on Vaishnava or just envy of Vaishnavas. Yes, criticizing devotees is aparadh, and it has very severe consequences on our Krishna consciousness. It blocks the jiva's progress in Krishna consciousness. It's like, that's why it is compared to a Vajralep. Vajra is the thunderbolt of Indra, and somebody struck with the thunderbolt, he's unconscious. He cannot get up then. So it's that severe. And that's why when we criticize, it affects our consciousness and it affects our sadhana. And it all comes out, in our chanting. That's why we should be very careful to not to criticize devotees. And that's why the whole Vaishnava Ninda essay of Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought out these points very nicely. There is one last question I will take up to end this session today. Yes, Maya Narasimha Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Prabhuji, you mentioned that until unless one comes to the stage of bhava, so he really cannot be situated on the stage where he, so he cannot stop committing Vaishnava aparadh. So it literally means that it is impossible for me to at this stage to not to commit Vaishnava aparadh, because it is a very hi-fi platform. To imagine that I can restrain myself from Vaishnava aparadh, it is like a superficial feeling I am feeling, Prabhuji.
No, it is not superficial, it is practical. Most important, you should understand why, at what stage, what happens. You have to have an idea about it. Otherwise, if you don't have an idea that I've started from Belgaum and I'm going to Bangalore, and Bangalore is 500 kilometers, you think that it's just a half an hour journey, then you're in illusion. After half an hour, you'll be thinking, oh, why is not Bangalore come? Why is not Bangalore come? You have to have an estimate of how far is Bangalore and how far it will take me to reach there. So that kind of an estimation is required. Similarly, when avidya is destroyed, we have to have a clear idea about it. And as sadhakas, if we know that that is our goal and this is what I want to achieve, then I will be careful, although I am in anartha stage, not to commit offense. That is, the jiva has that discrimination. And I'll be careful and I will practice sincerely sadhana bhakti. So that is important for us to understand. And with this knowledge, when we don't commit aparadh, especially nam aparadh during chanting, inattentive chanting, and aparadh in the form of sadhu ninda, with knowledge, we are acting. And with that knowledge, when we function, we can quickly cross through these stages and attain the higher stage. So that is how positively we have to take this.
Okay, Prabhu. So we need to practice it. Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Yes. Anyone has any other questions? Another 5 minutes is there. If anyone has any other questions, they can raise their hands. Any other questions or clarifications? Okay, so then we will stop here. Next week is a very important theme which we will be discussing. That is constructive